Hey everybody, Dave here. It's been a while since I made a video. I have been obsessive over C# for the last month or so. I want to sort of catalog where I've come from and where I'm going, I guess. So let's say 2 years from now, I can come back and look at this video and see like, oh my goodness, that's how little I knew about that topic. So if today, if I do like hexadecimal and bitwise operators and encoding, decoding, I'll mention in this video like what little I know about it, and then I'll learn and then I'll describe what I learned from that in this video. I'm hoping to eventually get to the point where I can do anything in C#, but I want to be able to look back and see what it was like when I couldn't. Now, to be fair, this is not like I'm starting fresh. I've spent a lot of time learning programming. I know object-oriented concepts, and I know C# to some degree, and VB.NET. I've learned Java some, and I've used PowerShell quite a bit. So I have some experience with that. So maybe I'm cheating a little bit, because it's not like I'm starting from nothing, but still, I think I'm very far away from where I want to be if I were to try to go get a software engineering job and not do RPA anymore. I say that like I want to get out of RPA, but I don't mean that necessarily. That's always been the natural evolution of where I wanted to go. We'll see if I ever get there. I'm happy for now, but what I want to do while I'm still doing RPA, because I still use Blue Prism every day, I want to learn everything I can about C#, and I use it in Blue Prism. So it helps me today, but I want to be able to type it so fast. I don't want to have to look up like, how does a for each look, and like, how does a for loop work? How do I declare a class in C#? And so I'm getting there. So you can see here on this website, what I've been learning from is exercism.org. That's kind of like, I think, a play on words. I don't know. It's exercise. And if you were to take the last E off and change it to an M, then it becomes exorcism. Anyway, like the belief in exercise. I don't know. Exercism.org. And there's lots of different languages that you can learn on here. So if I hover over this, you can go, look, it says like 65 plus languages. And I've been doing C# here, and this is the C# track. I've done like almost 3 rows of these little bubbles. The first 2 rows were like learning exercises. Things like, if I hover over some of these, you'll see that there's different titles for some of these things. I guess they don't show the topic. Oh, some of them do. This one references like date, time, and stuff. It starts with some simple stuff and then got harder and harder. And at this point, it's now beyond what I feel like I could have been comfortable doing more than a month ago. So like here with the spiral matrix one, then you're supposed to make a spiral matrix. It's supposed to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you do 4, it's supposed to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it goes around like this, and eventually it ends in the middle. So if you could do like size 70, and so it's supposed to be 70 wide and 70 tall, and you're supposed to make that in a way that is expandable or scalable. So it doesn't matter what's passed in. So I ended up, right, it took me quite a while to make this code, and I would say it's not the most efficient. It's probably not the best, but it really made me use my brain. And I want to do that for all the rest of these exercises, but I'm thinking I want to go ahead and just record myself doing all of them. And so that's what I want to start with today. This will be the first one I actually record. We'll see if I post this on YouTube or not. But what I'll be doing today is variable length quantity. And that is going to involve some hexadecimal, which I was reading about hexadecimal yesterday, and that's what led me into going like, maybe I should make a video about this. It's much simpler than I realized it was. It still hurts my brain a little, but I didn't realize it's something you could read with. You could just look at it, and if you can do a little bit of math in your head, then you could read it. And then it also involves bitwise operations, which I've done a little bit, but like I have a hard time visualizing it or knowing when to use it or how to use it. Let me show you what we are looking at. Okay, so the way the exorcism works is you type C# code into here, and this is sort of like your code editor, and then all this stuff that's here in front of me was already there when we started. So it has a class and some methods inside of it, and I'm supposed to implement them. So if I were to run this right now, it would throw a not implemented exception for both of them, so I can like run the test. It takes that code, uploads it to the internet, runs it on the server. I guess it compiles it, runs it on the server, and then it takes the output and returns it back to me and says, here's what you got from this. And so there's a bunch of test cases that it runs through. It uses XUnit. I guess that's a library for test cases and stuff. And it runs all these through, and if it fails any, then it tells you which ones you failed. In this case, I failed all 26 tests. So what I'm going to try to do now is we're going to read through this. I'm going to figure out what it is I need to learn because there's something I don't know. I don't know how to solve this right now. Or if I did, it would be a very obnoxious amount of code, and I'm not really supposed to, it shouldn't be that much code to solve this problem. So let's see, it says implement variable length quantity encoding and decoding. The goal of this exercise is to implement VLQ, which is variable length quantity encoding and decoding. In short, the goal of this encoding is to encode integer values in a way that would save bytes. Only the first 7 bits of each byte are significant. So if you have a 32-bit value, you have to unpack it into a series of 7-bit bytes. Of course, you will have a variable number of bytes depending on your integer. To indicate which is the last byte of the series, you leave bit number 7 clear. In all the preceding bytes, you set bit number 7. So I want to tell you something right now. I have no idea what I just read. I mean, I kind of get it, but I don't. Like if I had to explain that in any words besides what it says right here, I wouldn't be able to do it. I do understand to some degree that in coding and decoding, typically the goal is to take a bunch of data and make it fit into a smaller place, a smaller space, and then you decode it by taking that format that the data is in, and given the way that it's formatted or some indicator of some kind, you know how to decode it, and it becomes more data again, which is ideally maybe something you can read or something you can deal with. But I don't understand what I'm going for here, so I'm going to have to look up variable length quantity and understand that. I'm going to have to look up. Let's see. It says you need to use bitwise operations. And so there's a link I can go to here to read about bitwise and shift operators. I've used that some before, but like I only partially understand it. So now what I'm going to do is I don't know where I'm going with this. So I'm going to go all over the place, click on a bunch of different websites. I'm going to see if I can figure out how I determined or where I determined that hexadecimal has to do with this, except that I can see right here that this looks like hexadecimal, except hex is 6, but is it because it's base 16? Anyway, I'm going to come back to you once I've learned a little bit more. Okay, so it's not going well. It's not going well. I've been reading Stack Overflow and Wikipedia and things, and my brain still hurts just like it did like a little while ago. I'm gonna go again. I had to psych myself up, so I had to talk to you first before I go do this. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try so hard. This person's talking about histograms. I don't know, it sounds like a medical like test you do, but like I'm sure it's not. It's just like I don't know what he's talking about. This is ever so much further beyond what I know. I don't know. I suspect that the code I'm looking at here, like up here, for example, this guy shows how to, like he's got a method here for encoding a 32-bit integer and then decoding it. And I'm sure that that's actually either exactly what I need. Well, it can't be exactly because I'm supposed to do, oh, that's an unsigned integer. So that technically maybe this is almost exactly what I need. And in the end, if I have to do exactly what they show, then maybe I will. But like, I would like to try to figure it out myself. So some of the stuff that they have here, binary writer and reader, I don't think that I need that because I don't need to read and write from files and stuff. So I'm thinking the concept of what they're doing here for the encoding and decoding is all I need to do. I can kind of understand where they're going with this. You use bitwise operators to shift a number to basically cut out parts of it that you can assume later on when decoding it. I'm a little confused at this point. When you use, so I think what I've got to go do now is understand. I don't know what term to look up though. Do I need to look up bitwise encoding? Do I need to understand? Like I thought I needed to understand hexadecimal, but at this point, now I'm not sure. So you can see we've suddenly skipped to having completed variable length quantity. Did I cheat? Depends on your definition of cheat. I think that I completed the exercise partially correctly. So it says in the description that I'm supposed to use bitwise operations, and I did not. However, the thing is, like, I don't consider that particularly complicated, but I couldn't identify when I was supposed to use it. That's what I struggled with. I understand the idea of shifting bits and stuff like that, but I didn't know when I was supposed to use it here. So I'm going to show you what I made. Let's go into it. Here's what I made. Okay, the C# analyzer's trying to be passive aggressive with me over here, giving me recommendations. I didn't ask for that. Okay, so here is my code. I think I made way more lines of code than I needed to. And I named my methods to indicate how bad I think my code is. In the end, it relied on a lot of loops that maybe you're supposed to avoid with the use of bitwise operations and maybe LINQ. I don't know if LINQ is supposed to be used in this at all. But I didn't use either. I did solve the solution though. I just didn't do it the way they said to. And I feel bad for that, but it gives me room to improve. For future me, when you come back and you watch this video and you're like, or you look at this code and you're like, what is going on here? You're right. I don't know. Let's try to make it better. Let's agree to that. You and me in the future will do it right. Okay, so let's go to the next thing though. It's going to be, that's variable length quantity. I'm going to go back to my exercises for C#. So here was variable length quantity that I finished partially in the right way, but not really. And it's kind of bad code, but it works. And I'm pretty confident it works for any kind of input. I accomplished the goal of the output. It's just kind of inefficient. And that's kind of it's going to be a bit of a theme for me. Inefficient, but correct. Hey, that's actually how I talk too. I say a lot more words, but I'm correct. But like, is it efficient? So the dominoes was the next exercise that I needed to do. And this one, I was a little irritated that this early on in the list of exercises, it says hard. And that's the second time I saw hard here. No, this is the first time. Let's see. Let's go back and see. It was variable length quantity. It doesn't actually tell me if it's supposed to be hard. Oh, it's medium. Variable length quantity was medium. And the next one was dominoes, supposed to be hard. And I just was very much upset. I didn't record it because I was like, I don't know if I can even accomplish this. I'm very confident that I didn't do it in the right way. Let me briefly tell you what the point of this exercise was supposed to be. I needed to take, stones, like domino stones, which have like 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 3 on them or whatever, and determine whether or not you can make a chain out of them. So this domino that has 2 on one side and 1 on the other side can match up to this one that has 2 and 3. You match the 2 to the 2. And then you just chain all of the dominoes, and given a bunch of dominoes, you're supposed to say true or false, whether or not they can all chain together and even loop back around to the beginning. I think this is another one where I made it very inefficient, but I technically did it correctly. The real problem I have in this is that I used a while loop, and then I put in a check to see if I've reached some arbitrary number of max loop iterations. And the point of that was I knew I had an infinite loop in here and I didn't know how to solve that. So in order to solve the infinite loop possibility, it's if you run into an infinite loop, just stop. And in the way that I implemented that, it turns out all of the test cases that this thing does, it passes. So it's hard for me to, be upset at myself. It works. But if I come back, future me, and you improve upon this, we need to figure out how to make this not have an infinite loop and not have to have a check for an infinite loop occurring. We just need to make it right from the beginning. So the way that I did this is I maintained a list of dominoes, and the list is a tuple of int and int. And what I thought was, let me just put all of the dominoes in there, and then I was proud of myself for trying this at least, use recursion right here. We got recursion. So this next domino is the name of the function that we're in. By the way, I don't normally make my functions this excessive. I would normally split them up into separate, even if there's static methods, making separate methods for specific purposes. But I was kind of in the mode of, I just want to see if I can even accomplish this. I'll make a really bad version of this and then come back and fix it later. And I intend to do that. So next domino will call itself over and over until eventually it reaches having no more dominoes left. And each time it will basically go, let me find the next domino in this list that can match up to the one that I'm currently dealing with. If we find one, then we remove that domino from the list and we then go to the next domino and keep going. And at the very end, we check to see, is our last domino, does it match our first domino? So we make sure we have a chain that goes all the way around. It works for all the test cases, at least. I think if you provided a bunch of dominoes, it would not work. If you provided like 2,000 dominoes for it to loop around, I think that this would fail because of the infinite loop check. Now I could just increase this to like 1 million, but that's not the way that we should be doing things. So that's something to improve upon. But I am proud of myself on this one for having used recursion, and not proud of myself for nesting some if statements. I guess I didn't nest any if statements actually. I just put a little bit too much in a single method. Not proud of myself for the infinite loop issue. And other than that, I think this was okay. I think I was impressed with myself. This was hard, supposed to be hard, and I solved it. But I need to come back and do it again later. Okay, then let me tell you what came next. Let's talk about this. I got to the next exercise, and it was called Forth. Forth is a programming language that is like BASIC. I've never used Forth, but the goal of this exercise, and notice it says hard again, you're supposed to sort of build a text parser that will be able to interpret commands that would be given to Forth and have C# effectively do the same functionality. I think that's pretty cool. I definitely read over this. I spent like, I don't know, an hour and a half or something reading over this and trying to imagine what I'd do. I started typing some code based upon this tutorial where you build a grammar class and you have like, I don't even know what to call these, but you're building out this grammar class so that it helps you to parse different characters and classify them different ways. And then you can use it to take instructions and output something just like Forth would. Woo! Beyond me, nowhere close to solving this. So I decided I'm just going to skip that because I don't even understand why these things are in this order. If you see, well, you can't see it, but if I hover over down here, you can see medium, 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 medium. Okay, all these are medium. Here's an easy one. Here's an easy one. And like, I can even go down to this row and there's easy down here while there's hard up here. So I don't understand the order I'm supposed to do this in. There's this learning tab. This is a really nice website, but I don't think that it's even trying to give it to me in an order of easy to hard. I decided when I come across one that's too much for me, I'm just going to skip it. And so today I went to, let's see, I'd already done pangram and isogram, acronym. So I went to the next exercise, like going from left to right that I hadn't done already because I'd done some of these. I went to grains, and this took me like, I don't know, a very short amount of time. I don't know that it's really the best solution. The scenario is that there's a servant who saved the prince, and then the king said, you can have whatever you want. And the servant said, I want grains of wheat, but the way I want it is 1 grain of wheat on the first tile of a chessboard. And then for each tile, I want that grain doubled. And it turns out to be like a pretty high number. And it's one of those things where you think that's not going to be that much, but you agree to it and turns out it's a whole bunch. So I went to make this, and this is my thing, loops, because that's what I rely on. And this is all it took right here on the screen. You have a method based upon some number of tiles. So you like say, oh, the 35th tile on the chessboard, I want to know how many grains are on that piece. And then a method called total that should just return the total number of wheat on the entire chessboard. And this is all it took. And I was pretty proud of myself. So I think that's what we're going to keep doing. I'm going to keep going to the next one. And if I come across one that is like too hard for me, I'm just going to skip it. It hurts my brain seeing this here not having been completed, but I'm going to let it go. And then I went to perfect numbers. And this one is like, so a perfect number is defined as, in this case at least, when the factors of a number add up to equal itself. And obviously you don't include it itself. So 15 here has factors of 1, 3, and 5. And when you add those up, it comes out to 9. So that's not a perfect number. But 6 is a perfect number because its factors are 1, 2, and 3. Add those up and you get 6. So you're supposed to identify them as perfect or abundant, meaning that whenever you add up the factors, they are higher than the number. And deficient is when you add up the factors add up to be less than itself. I made that code here. And I think that what I did here is fine. The problem is I have a feeling that there is a more efficient way to determine the factors of a number. It's also probably faster to add up the factors of a number. Like I did loops for each of those. So I did a for loop here, and in each one, I basically just went like, okay, from 1 to let's say 100, you go 100 mod 1. And then if that's equal to 0, meaning there's no remainder, then then that's a factor of 100, and you add it to a list, and then I return the list. And then once I've got the factors, then I just add them together and then do simple if statements. If the factors sum is greater than the number, then it's abundant. If the factor sum is equal, then it's perfect, and otherwise it's deficient. And then it was done, and that's good to go. What I think I should need to improve upon in the future is I need to come back and see if there is a more efficient way to determine factors of a number, and then also a more efficient way to add those together. Because if you had like factors of a super massive number, there's probably a more efficient way to add those up. And maybe that should be part of the operation of getting the factors. I'm not sure. So if you've made it this far, and I didn't say this at the beginning, the point of this video, and really any videos like it, is I want to record or sort of document for myself where I was at in the past, what I was thinking and stuff like that, because I've realized I get so out of touch with myself from the past. Like I don't remember what it was like to not know some C#. And I think in the future, I'm going to get to the point where I'm not going to remember what it was like to not know C# really well. So right now I'm like, I feel uncomfortable with a good number of mechanisms in the language and stuff. And I think that I still don't know enough to build full applications, but I want to get there. And I think that Exercism, this website, is just taking me so much farther, so much faster than I would have on my own by giving me specific problems to solve. So I'll see you next time in either a C# video, or maybe I'll do another RPA video next. We'll see.